Canine dog refuses to approach abandoned hospital room. What they found, locked inside, shocked the world. What happened will shock you. Like, share, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from so we can see our family around the world. Rain stitched at the windows and made thin rivers down the cracked glass. Thunder rolled like carts on a ceiling no one could reach. The north wing sat in a blue hush, lit only by emergency bars that buzzed. Hillcrest Mercy had emptied this side months ago, or that was the story everyone liked to tell. Tonight, the demolition team wanted a final walkthrough before the walls came down. The building answered with cold air and the smell of old cleaner, like it had been holding its breath all this time and was not sure it wanted to let it go. Officer Evan Cole walked point with Echo at his heel. The leash hung loose because Echo never needed to be dragged. The dog's ears sifted sound the way a hand tested water. His paws were silent on gritty tile. Evan noted the tick of a loose sign and the clink of keys on the foreman's belt. He had done these checks many times. Most nights were nothing. Tonight did not feel like most nights. Maya Noor came with them because she knew the hospital like a map pinned inside her head. She held a clipboard tight and kept her voice steady. This hall was closed after the roof leak, she said. Watch the buckled tiles near the nurses' station. She smiled at Rick Bowen, the foreman, and at Noel Grant, the night guard whose cap never sat quite straight. They made a left past the frozen clock at 2:17. That was when Echo stopped. Not a pause. A stop like a wall. The leash snapped tight. The dog leaned his weight backward until Evan felt it in his bones. Echo stared at a single gray door whose number plate hung crooked. Room 310, his head lowered. A sound started deep inside him, a small rolling growl. Easy, Evan said, hand calm on the leash. Talk to me. Echo slid sideways and laid his body across the doorway, chest against the threshold, as if he could block the air itself from coming or going. He nosed the bottom seam, sniffed, and refused to inhale near it again. He looked at Evan, then at the door, then at Maya, and then he stayed exactly where he was. Maya's smile fell. He never does that, she whispered. Paint peeled in long curls around the frame. The handle wore the shine of too many hands. The number plate tilted like a tired eyelid. Rick lifted his flashlight. We still need to clear it, he said. 6 in the morning, the machines come. He took one step. Echo showed teeth without moving anything else. Rick froze. He knew working dogs and respected one that said no. Noel hugged his monitor. Admin said this hall was clean, he said. They emailed it. Lightning flared and stripped the color out of the hallway. In that white blink, a sound floated from behind the door. 3 notes from a music box, small and tinny, like a hand wound it in the dark and hoped it might save someone. The notes rose, paused, rose again. Maya looked at the ceiling. There's no power, she said. We shut it down last month. A music box doesn't need power, Rick said. Someone had to wind it, Evan said. Echo's ears tipped forward. He went back to the seam, sniffed, and then turned his head toward the little ventilation grate beside the frame. He pawed it and lay down again with his head toward the vent, the way he did when he knew a living thing was on the other side of something thin. Hold on, Maya said. She knelt and pressed her cheek close to the floor. Quiet, the storm filled the quiet. Then a cough slipped through the vent. It was a tiny cough, a scratch made by a throat that had been patient for too long. Maya's hand went to her mouth. Evan tried the handle. It did not move. He tried again. Nothing. Rick passed him the ring of keys. Evan fed keys into the lock, one by one, listening for a click that refused to come. He touched the hinges and felt the hard truth of new welds. He lifted his light. The metal around the pins had a fresh shine. Down near the baseboard, the dust was disturbed in a neat half circle. Who welds a door like this? Rick asked. Someone who wanted it to stay shut, Evan said. He followed the frame up and found 2 slim plates drilled into the wood. A small padlock sat between them, bright and smug. Echo barked once, short and flat. The music box kept cycling. We're wasting minutes, Maya said. If someone is in there, the air is bad. The vents are probably taped. We need to open it. She looked at Evan. Now, Evan nodded. Echo, back. The dog scooted only as much as he had to. Rick slid the pry bar into Evan's hand. Evan set it to the side plate and leaned until the bar sang. Metal complained, but did not give. He shifted to the wall.
The plaster, swollen by old rain, had the softness of bread.
Here, he said. This will break. Rick swung the sledge into the weak spot. The wall chunked inward. He grabbed the edges and pulled until a ragged mouth opened beside the latch. Behind it, a piece of steel plate hid like a secret. It overlapped in one corner. Evan slid the bar into the seam and leaned his weight forward until the plate squealed. Almost, Rick said. The padlock held. Echo gave a low rumble and then went still. Maya lifted her head. The cough came again, softer, then stopped. The music box faltered, then found its 3 notes again. Noel blinked at his monitor. I'm not getting video, he said. This hall, nothing. He stared up at the black dome of the ceiling camera. I've got the other halls. Not this one. He reached for the small panel near the camera. Open it, Evan said. Tell me why it's black. Noel's fingers shook as he popped the cover. Inside, neat cables sat in their little trough. One cable near the top had been pulled out of its seat and cut. The end dangled clean and mean. Noel swallowed. Someone did that tonight, Evan said. Or they did it when it would matter most. He glanced at the dust, the welded hinges, the padlock. Either way, they made sure we wouldn't see this hallway. Rick swore. If the door's welded and the camera's cut, someone planned this. Maya nodded. Then stop talking and get it open, she said. She pressed her ear to the vent again. Sweetheart, she said to whoever was inside. Tap if you can. Cough if you can. The vent answered with the smallest scrape. Evan keyed his radio. Dispatch call. Possible entrapment. North Wing, Hillcrest Mercy, room 310. Power partial. Door welded, camera feed cut. Send fire for forced entry and EMS standby. The reply crackled. Units en route. He clipped the radio back and stared at the seam again. Maya took a breath. Years ago, she said, a therapy dog hated the dialysis bay. Next morning, maintenance found a gas leak under the floor. The trainer said dogs don't make speeches. They just refuse. Echo pressed his nose to the bottom of the door and drew a short breath, then turned away from the seam with a tight shake of his head. Evan had seen him act this way once, on a winter night when a boiler filled a basement with bad air. Echo had set his body like a brace. Evan had listened. That choice had bought an hour they needed. Noel pointed at the crooked number plate. This used to be the Swan Room, he said. Peds. A volunteer painted a swan on the wall. It's under the gray now. He rubbed his thumb across a streak of brighter paint. Someone covered this quick. Rick returned from a closet with a second hammer. If we peel the jam, he said, we might crack the fire stop. I don't like it, but if it's that or leave a person inside, we're not leaving, Evan said. We're not walking away from a cough. The emergency lights flickered and held. Echo's nails ticked once on tile and went still. Maya leaned close to the vent again, spoke in the slow cadence people used for babies and for people on bad edges. I know you're tired, she said. We're close. Keep breathing for me. Keep counting to 3 with the music. The 3 notes turned again, high and thin and stubborn. Evan pictured a small hand on a key and a person standing where Noel stood now, cutting a cable, twisting in a padlock, and walking away while the storm began. Noel wiped his face with his sleeve. If admin asks, he said, I'll tell them I watched a door sing while the camera slept. Admin can wait, Maya said. A person can't. Copy that, Evan said. He put his palm flat on the cool metal. He could feel a kind of slow breathing under his skin that wasn't his. In the distance, he heard the faint whoop of a siren tangled in the storm. It felt far away. He rolled his shoulders once, set his feet, and nodded at Rick. Evan remembered the first rule the trainer drilled into them. Trust the nose when your eyes disagree. It sounded simple, a slogan on a wall, until the night Echo blocked a stairwell, and they later learned the boiler had leaked poison into dark. Staring at the seam now, he felt the same certainty. Echo was not afraid. He was warning them the room itself was wrong in a way no human could name. Evan slid his palm along Echo's neck, felt warm muscle under damp fur, and let the steadiness travel into his hands. He made a promise to the breath behind the door and to the dog. We will open this, and we will do it, right now. Footsteps pounded back toward them, and Rick slid into view with a wedge and a bigger bar. Make space, he said. He shoved the wedge between the plate and the wood, hammered it deep, and nodded at Evan. Try now. Evan leaned. The bar bit. The plate screamed. The padlock shivered. Echo stood, legs braced. The door groaned and then fell quiet. Evan eased back, listened through his hands, felt the stubbornness inside the frame like a heartbeat. Again, Rick said. Again, Evan agreed. They set and swung and set and swung. Each hit gave a little. The emergency lights hummed. Water moved in the walls. Noel stared at the panel and then at the dark dome, cheeks wet. He had stood in this hall for years and never once thought the building could keep a secret from him. Now the secret breathed through a vent. Evan paused with the bar set and looked at Maya. "We have you," he said, voice firm. Echo exhaled a low sound that felt like agreement. They braced for one more shove when a shadow slid across the far end of the hallway and paused. It was still and strange in the blue light, a human shape that did not belong to any of them. Evan's head snapped up. The shape withdrew like it had melted into the wall. Echo's growl rolled out, darker this time. Evan did not chase. He held the bar steady. "We're not splitting," he said. "First the door." They hit the plate one last time and the lock lurched, but did not fall. Evan pulled back and let the bar rest. He could feel the room waiting behind the metal. He wiped his palm on his pants and set his shoulders. "We're opening it," he said. "We're opening it now." Outside, thunder answered with a slow, heavy roll. Echo's tail tapped once on Evan's boot. Maya pressed both hands flat to the door. Noel stared at the cut cable and swallowed hard. Rick raised the sledge. The three notes turned once more, small and brave against the storm, and the hallway held its breath. Rain rattled the windows and made a low hum in the ducts. The three notes from the tiny music box kept looping, thin and stubborn, as if the night had a heartbeat. Evan set the bar and Rick raised the sledge. Echo leaned into Evan's leg and stared at the crooked number on the door, 310, ears fixed like arrows. "Once more," Rick said. "Now," Evan answered. They moved together. Metal screamed, the padlock staple tore, and the door jumped an inch before catching on the welded hinges. A thread of air pushed out, stale and sharp. Echo sneezed hard, then looked up at the ceiling and froze with a focus Evan knew. Danger above, not ahead. "Listen," Maya whispered. The cough came again, so small it could have been a hinge, but it wasn't. It slid through the crack and landed in all of them. Evan widened the gap and went in sideways, light low. The room held dust like snow, except for a path to a tall cupboard on the far wall. Echo slipped in close, belly low, nose to seam, and gave a thin whine that meant child. Evan tugged. The cupboard resisted with 3 new screws shining among old ones. Maya turned them with a coin. They eased free with the soft feel of recent work. Inside, a boy not older than 5 sat on a folded blanket, cheeks blotchy, eyes bright and tired. A red toy ambulance lay under one arm. The music box rested by his knee, its bent key working a simple tune that kept courage steady. "Hey," Evan said, dropping to a knee. "I'm Evan. This is Echo. He's kind." The boy stretched his hand toward the dog before he spoke. Echo went 1 inch at a time, touched his fingers with his nose, then settled still like furniture. "I'm Maya," Maya said soft. "What's your name?" "Milo," he whispered, voice rough. He looked past them at the ceiling, then at Echo again. "We're taking you out," Evan said. "Slow. Put your face in Maya's scarf. Keep one hand on Echo. He won't move too fast." Milo nodded and slid his fingers into Echo's ruff. The dog shifted to give him better hold. Maya picked up the music box. "Did you wind this?" she asked. Milo shook his head. "Miss A did," he said. "She said Noisy is safe." "What did Miss A look like?" Evan asked. "Pretty hair," Milo said. "Bird on her badge." He drew a little bird in the air. Evan checked the cupboard for anything left on purpose. A small instant photo was taped to the back. He peeled it carefully. A young woman in scrubs smiled at the camera in a staff room, paper hat crushed in her fist. Along the bottom, in thick marker, "Listen to the room your dog refuses." Maya's breath caught. "Aria Bell," she whispered. "Peds nights." She kept quilts in the warmer. Her eyes shone and hardened. "People said she transferred the week this wing closed." She slid the photo into her pocket. "We move." The air near the ceiling bit the nose. Evan lifted his light to the sprinkler over the door. The glass bulb was smeared with a cloudy film. The ring had fresh scratches. Paint around the faceplate looked touched up. It was a dressed-up injury. That head is wrong, Maya said. If heat hits it, it might not pop. Evan crouched by the baseboard. A thin, sticky line ran along the wall. He touched it with a gloved finger and sniffed. It stung and then numbed. Solvent, he said. Not store stuff. Rick's jaw tightened. Empty room, tampered head, solvent trail. Someone wanted a fire that ate fast. Echo pressed his side to Milo's shin. Milo leaned into him like a hand warmer. Evan watched the sprinkler. A bead formed at the thread and fell, leaving a dull rainbow on the tile. Out, he said quietly. No scraping metal. They eased back through the crack. Rick held the door just shy of closed. Noel stuffed his jacket into the vent and taped it fast with shaking hands. The music box faltered and went silent. The hallway exhaled. At the nurse's station, Maya sat with Milo on her lap, keeping his face tucked under her scarf. Echo sat close enough for Milo to keep his fingers in fur. Noel found a water bottle from a forgotten stash. Milo sipped slow, still watching the dog. Evan kept his voice steady. Milo, did Miss A say where she was going? She said small and noisy, Milo said. She sang birdsong. He pressed the toy ambulance roof. It squeaked. Echo flicked an ear, which made Milo's mouth twitch toward a smile. Fire boots pounded the stairwell. The lieutenant took one sniff near 310 and frowned. That's not dust, she said. We foam before we open. Her crew rolled a low ridge of white under the door. What chemical are we smelling? Evan asked. X-77, she said. Hospital grade. You signed for it. Flashes hot, hates water until you smother it. If someone painted a head with it, they knew exactly what they were doing. Admin keeps those keys, Maya said. You can't get a bottle without a manager code. Evan nodded at Noel. Pull the paper logs for X-77, 6 months. Names, quantities, times. Don't rely on the screen. Noel swallowed and nodded. On it. He glanced at the dead camera dome and winced. I'll check maintenance tickets and keycard pings for this hall, too. Maya smoothed Milo's hair. We're riding out in a warm van, she told him. No siren. They'll check your chest and give you better juice. Echo comes, Milo said without looking up. Right behind you, Evan said. Echo leaned closer to confirm. They waited while foam held. The storm made the lights buzz. The building muttered like it remembered better nights. The lieutenant stepped back from the door. Head's coated, she said. We're bagging it. Maya's eyes went to the ceiling over the station. The other heads were dusty, untouched. Someone picked that room for a reason, she said. Not just emptiness. Evan thought of the cut camera cable, the new screws, the welded hinges. He thought of the photo and the line across the bottom urging him to trust the dog. He looked at Echo. The dog stared toward the stairwell now, not growling, just marking it as a problem for later. A medic named Jai came in soft. I'm going to borrow a finger, he told Milo, showing a pulse ox like a toy. The meter glowed. Good numbers, he said. Dry throat. Slow and steady, Milo lifted the ambulance and studied it like it could tell him what to do next. He glanced at Echo and then at Maya. Miss A said the quiet hurts, he said. You kept good noise, Maya said. You saved yourself. Evan opened a small evidence pouch and slid in the photo. He looked around the station and found a drawer with sterile swabs, took one, and dabbed the smear he had seen near the baseboard earlier. He bagged that too. Chain of custody, he told himself out loud. Saying it steadied his hands. Echo's attention hooked back to the stairwell door. He lifted his nose and drew a delicate sip of air, then settled again. Evan filed the cue. He would check the stair camera and the landing as soon as Milo was in safe hands. He did not like the memory of a shape at the far end of the hall, right before they broke the lock. He had not imagined it. Echo had marked it too. The lieutenant returned with a sealed bag. Heads in, she said. You can smell the sweet bite through the plastic. We'll send it to lab. If it's X-77, the log will tell you who had the keys. Whoever did this thought a fire in an empty wing would look like old wiring, Maya said. Or like rain in a tired building. They thought no one would ask why a door was welded and a camera was blind. They didn't count on Echo, Evan said. He ruffled the dog's chest. Echo accepted the touch and then sat taller, still watching the angle Danger liked. Jai signaled. We're ready, he said. Van's warm. We'll go quiet. Maya stood with Milo in her arms. He had gone heavy with that particular tired kids have when they stopped being brave, because someone else started being brave for them. Echo stood at once and placed himself on the left where Milo could keep hold of Fur. They set off down the corridor like a tiny parade. Rick walked behind, broad enough to block a draft. Noel peeled off toward Records at a near run. At the doors, Milo lifted his head and looked back. "Is Miss A scared?" he asked, so direct it made Evan's throat tight. Maya kissed his hair. "Maybe," she said. "Brave people get scared. We're going to find her." "Echo finds her," he said, not asking. Just naming the world he wanted. "Echo helps us," Evan said, and made that promise real in his chest. Under the awning, Rain stitched a silver curtain. Jai lifted Milo into the ambulance and buckled him beside Maya. Echo put his paws on the step, looked in long, then sat when Evan touched his shoulder. The doors closed. The van's lights slid across wet pavement and turned the corner. Echo kept his eyes on the red glow until it vanished. Then he faced the stairwell again and waited, as if to say, "Now we work the part that hasn't happened yet." Evan breathed once, tasted a ghost of solvent, and called the shift commander with the quick facts. Child recovered alive, room tampered, camera cut, solvent present, photo recovered, suspected insider access. He clipped the radio back and found Noel coming fast with a folder hugged to his chest. X77 sign-out logs, Noel said. "Paper lasts 6 months. Names and manager codes." He glanced toward 310, where foam lipped the gap. "There are a lot of entries after hours," he added, voice tight. "We'll read them," Evan said. "We'll match them to maintenance calls and badge swipes. We'll learn who liked that solvent too much." He tucked the folder under his arm and felt how heavy paper could be when it carried blame. Rick joined them, wet around the collar. "Lieutenant says the smear on the bulb looks like paste and solvent mixed," he said. "A trick she's seen twice in arson cases." "Then this isn't clumsy," Evan said. "It's careful." He looked at Echo. The dog had not moved except to shift weight from one paw to the other, eyes steady on the stair door. "We check that landing now," he said. "If you smell something, you tell me before you think about being polite." Echo blinked once, an almost wink, and stood. They pushed the stair door. Cold air breathed up at them. Concrete steps went down and up into dim. The storm's voice came through the railings. Echo sniffed, eyes gentle but precise. He lifted his head toward the higher landing, then froze on the next step as if a thread crossed it. Evan dropped his light. A tiny glitter on the edge of the step caught. It was clear tape with dust stuck to it, and on it a few pale hairs that did not look like dog. "Hold," Evan said. He snapped a photo and bagged the tape. A dark scuff mark on the landing matched the glue and solvent line he had seen in 310. "Someone carried something down or up," he said. "Or someone leaned to watch and left a toe." Echo exhaled through his nose, then turned his head back the way they came. He was done for now, which told Evan the live threat had left, or the dog had decided the boy mattered more than chasing shadows. They closed the stair door and locked it. Evan wrote a quick sign for 310 with a fat marker, sealed, "Do not enter investigation," and signed it with his badge number so no one had an excuse. He handed Rick the remaining roll of hazard tape and the sledge. "Make it ugly enough that even a fool won't touch it," he said. Rick obliged, webbing the frame until it looked like a cocoon. Maya texted from the ambulance bay. Oxygen, fluids, stable vitals, small cough, big eyes. Evan read it twice and let his shoulders fall a notch. He sent back a photo of Echo sitting square in front of 310, as solid as furniture, as if the dog himself was a lock. She replied with a heart and the word promise. The lieutenant came with a clipboard and the bagged head. "Chain signed," she said. "We'll hand carry to lab. If you want a word for your report, use this. Deliberate?" "I will," he said. He meant both the word and the way he would push. He turned to Echo and rubbed the clean spot under the collar that always made the dog close his eyes for a beat. "We listened," he said. "You were right." Echo opened his eyes and looked at the stair door one last time, then settled at Evan's heel. The hallway looked ordinary again if you didn't know how to see. A dead camera, a welded door, a smear cleaned in a line, a sprinkler head that would have failed right when it mattered. An empty staff station where a boy drank water and held onto a dog like he had caught a rope in a dark river. A photo in a pocket that said to trust the refusal. You could walk by all of it and think the storm had only shaken dust. But the air had changed. A kind of truth had been pulled out of the wall and set on the counter where everyone could see it if they looked. Evan opened Noel's folder and saw names and codes in neat columns. The same initials repeating on nights. No one should have needed solvent. He closed it for now. There would be time to read it slow. First they would sit on the door, keep the foam fresh, and wait for a call from the bay that said a child was breathing easy. Then they would follow the solvent back to a pen in a hand. Echo shifted closer until his shoulder touched Evan's boot. A quiet nudge that felt like a plan. Evan nodded to no one and to the dog. We pull the thread, he said. We see where it runs. We breathed together, counting 3 beats, like the music taught us, and the storm outside felt a little smaller tonight. If you stood in that hall with us, would you have trusted Echo the first time he refused? Or would you have tried the door and risked the trap? Tell us below which choice your gut makes. The rain pinned the city while the ambulance doors slid shut on Maya and Milo, and Echo's eyes followed the red lights until they turned out of sight. Evan stood with the paper logs under his arm and the bagged sprinkler head in his pocket. He looked once at the taped sign on 310, once at Noel holding his keys like a float, then told Echo, We're going to the bay. The dog rose without a sound. They moved. At the emergency entrance, the storm broke into sheets under the awning. Inside, the light felt too clean. Maya sat beyond triage with Milo under a wool blanket. Jai had taped a small line to Milo's hand and hung a bag the size of a cup. The boy stared at Echo with the calm of someone who had picked one safe thing and planned to hold it. We're stable, Jai said. Oxygen and fluids. Lungs irritated, no fever. Any burns? Evan asked. None, Jai said. They wanted smoke, not flame. Milo pressed the toy ambulance button. It chirped weakly. Echo set his chin on the bench so Milo could touch one ear. Maya smiled, then watched the automatic doors sigh open. A man stepped in like the hall had been made for him. Dark coat, polished shoes, badge swinging. Dr. Colin Voss, he said, almost before anyone could ask. Operations. I got the alert about a child in the closed wing. He showed the badge like a shield. We should transfer him to a private facility at once. Liability exposure is severe. Maya's grip tightened. He needs rest, not a car ride. We have rooms on the east side, Jai said. No need to leave the building. Voss gave a thin smile that refused to admit no. Our insurer requires transfer when a patient is found in a non-compliant zone, he said. I'll handle transport. Quiet, safe, off the books. His eyes went to the IV, then to Milo. What's his name? Milo flinched. He did not answer. Echo's ears tilted back. Evan stepped so he filled the small gap between Voss and the bench. Not hard, just there. He's a minor witness, Evan said. The wing is a scene. Nothing moves until State takes a look. Voss's smile held. Officer? Cole. Well, Officer Cole, he said. I'll give you what you need. Let's not slow the child's care with red tape. Noel hurried in with a paper cup and a folder hugged to his chest. He looked washed out. Sign-out sheets from the cage, he told Evan, handing over the logs. 6 months. Good, Evan said. He slid them under his arm. Maya reached for the toy to check a rattle, and Noel's hand shot out first, almost the same second as Voss's. Echo moved before either man could touch it. He placed his paw on the toy roof and gave a low growl that came from his chest. Noel jerked back like he had grabbed a live wire. Voss's fingers hovered, then withdrew with a laugh he did not believe. Easy, Voss said. We don't want to agitate the animal. He's not agitated, Evan said. He's working, Maya frowned. She turned the toy in her hands. The battery cover had a new screw and faint tool marks. The weight felt wrong. Heavy for a toddler toy, she said. Milo, did Miss A ever open it? She put a sticker, Milo said, tracing a ghost of glue. She said red flashes mean brave. Maya found a small screwdriver on a crash cart. She glanced at Evan. He nodded. She cracked the cover and slid the panel free with careful fingers. Inside, where no cavity should be, a hidden slot had been carved. A tiny black card sat wrapped in tape. White letters said, 310, do not erase. Echo lowered his head, sniffed once, then backed off and sat. Milo stared at the open space like a door had appeared in a wall. "What's that?" Noel asked. "A memory card," Maya said. "And someone wanted the right hands to find it." Voss lifted his palms. "Careful. Chain of custody. We're keeping chain," Evan said. He slid the card into an evidence pouch, sealed it loud, dated and signed. Voss's eyes tracked the tape with too much interest. "I'll call the State Bureau," Evan said. "They'll image it. I can send it to our vendor," Voss said. "They're excellent." "Not tonight," Evan said. Echo stayed pressed to the bench so Milo could keep a hand in his fur. The storm hammered the glass. The hallway TV whispered weather. Evan's phone hummed. He stepped away, keeping his eyes on Echo and the boy. Dispatch patched him to the duty agent. "Rena Shah," a brisk voice said. "Who has the case?" "Evan Cole," he said. "Child recovered from a welded room, solvent on a sprinkler head, cut camera, labeled card found in the child's toy." "We need State on scene. I'm 20 minutes out," she said. "Do not put media into a networked machine." "I'll image it cold." "Copy," Evan said. He turned back. Voss had drifted closer to the bench, as if pulled by a magnet. "We can at least place a bracelet," Voss said, holding a label. "No name, just a number." "Lawyers prefer it." "A bracelet is fine," Maya said. "But he gets a name, Milo." Voss smoothed his mouth into a smile again. "Of course," he said. Echo's ears flicked at the door, then forward again. Two figures walked in from the storm. A woman in a rain-dark coat with a hard case and a tech with a canvas bag. Rena moved like someone who lived close to the facts. She let Echo smell her hand, then stood and held a palm for the pouch. "Sealed?" she asked. "Sealed," Evan said. "I need a quiet room," she said. Voss opened his mouth to object. Rena lifted her badge. State authority. 10 minutes. Maya pointed at a family consult room. "Use that," they went in. Rena laid a mat, set a write blocker, and used a clean laptop with no network. She cut the seal, slotted the card into the bridge, then into the blocker, then into the machine. "No autoplay," she said. "We look at the table first." Folders populated. Audio, docs, one hidden folder labeled with a string that held a date if you knew how to look. Rena breathed, touched nothing reckless, and read names out. "Audio clips over 3 weeks," she said. "Labels, night word, billing flag, parent call, trial batch." One folder called Birdsong. Evan thought of the tiny tune in the hallway. Maya's face changed like someone had opened a door inside her. "Birdsong," she whispered. "Aria loved birds. You knew her?" Rena asked. "She worked Peds nights," Maya said. "Aria Bell. She kept quilts in the warmer." Rena imaged the card to a drive, then opened the first clip. A woman spoke in a level voice that carried weight because it refused to bend. "Night 1, she said. 3 children on batch C reported dizziness within an hour. We logged as post-viral malaise on orders. The solvent smell from the supply cage is back. Aria Bell," Rena read from the metadata. "Recorded 3 months ago." Maya nodded without taking her eyes off the table. "That's her." Rena opened night 8. The voice was tired and sure. "No cameras on Corridor G after midnight. Someone cut the feed. Someone used my badge to sign out X77. I did not take it. If you're listening, please believe me. The dog is the only one acting right." Echo refused dialysis when the leak happened. If Echo refuses a room, listen. Echo shifted and rested his head on Evan's boot, as if the words stroked him. Evan felt the weight and steadied. Rena clicked Birdsong. A soft hum filled the room. Between verses, the voice came closer. "This is for you, little one," Aria said. "Count the notes when it's scary. 1, 2, 3. I'll come back." The tune returned, simple as a hand to hold. Maya blinked hard and smiled at the same time. "She could make a crying child laugh with a paper cup," she said. Rena opened a text list in docs. Names and times lined the screen. Solvent pulls, cage keys, badge pings. 2 entries sat too close together on too many nights. N. Grant, after hours cage access. C. Voss, approval codes for maintenance test. Rena lifted her eyes to Noel, who stood inside the doorway as if the wall could hold him up. "Noel," she said, voice steady. "Did you sign out X77 on these nights?" Noel's lower lip shook. "They told me it was for a clogged pump," he said. "I never opened a bottle." I carried boxes to a man with a clipboard.
He wore a vendor jacket.
He said, "Hurry." "Who told you?" Evan asked. "A shift manager texted me," Noel said. "The number went dead the next day." Voss folded his hands behind his back. "We do vendor tests at night to avoid disrupting care," he said. "If my code appears, it's a system quirk. My code opens many things. That's why you protect it," Rena said. "If it floats, you're careless. If you handed it off, you're complicit. Pick one." Voss's smile thinned. "I manage a complex facility," he said. "People borrow. People make mistakes." "A welded door isn't a mistake," Maya said. "A painted sprinkler isn't borrowing." Rena clicked one more audio file. Arya's voice had a tremor now. "They told me to discharge the boy as moved to family," she said. "No family came." He coughed and tried to sing. "I tucked this card in his toy because the dog will smell the glue. If you are an officer, please don't let them say I ran. My name is Arya Bell. I love my work. I love that boy. If you think I disappeared by choice, I did not." Outside the glass, Milo stirred as if the tune had reached through the wall. Echo made a small sound back, a soft throat word he saved for babies. Rena sat straighter. "We have enough to freeze rooms and seize records," she said. "We need a protective order for admin devices, the supply cage terminal, and badge logs. We need to interview staff before anyone tidies. You can't just barge in and take computers," Voss said. "There's process." "You're hearing it," Rena said. She nodded at Evan. He called the on-call judge and laid out clean facts. Child, welded door, cut camera, solvent head, labeled card, nurse recordings naming 2 staff, and a pattern of cover. The judge, famous for a short fuse with hospital poison, said yes so fast Evan forgot to breathe a second. While they waited for the facts, Maya sat with Milo and told him small stories about a turtle on a river path. He smiled at the edges and kept a finger in Echo's fur like a rope. Noel slid down the wall until he sat on the floor, cap bent, cup forgotten. "I signed those boxes," he said. "Maybe I didn't know, but my name is there." "I should have asked. I should have looked inside." "Then tell the truth now," Evan said. "You can stand up and help us instead of walking backward." Noel nodded once like a man finally exhaling. "Okay," he said. The fax machine coughed out paper. Rena tucked the order into a sleeve and handed a copy to Evan. He offered it to Voss. "We're taking computers and logs," he said. "You'll show us where. You'll call no one outside this hall. If you try, I'll put cuffs on you in front of a child." Voss read without blinking, then smiled like glass. "I'll cooperate," he said. "We all want safety." "Start with your office," Evan said. They cloned 2 machines while Rain wrote lines on the windows. On Voss's desk sat a pamphlet for a soft-name charity. Evan filed it in his head for later and watched progress bars crawl. The tech labeled drives and typed notes that would matter months from now. Back in the consult room, Rena played one last file. Arya's voice was almost a whisper. "If I don't get to say this out loud," she said, "I'm not broken. I am angry and I am careful, and I still believe the dog is the only one here who never lies." Echo breathed out a sound that matched the words. Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and did not say sorry. Rena printed the key logs and bagged the originals. She set a guard on the admin hall. Evan stood at the glass and watched Milo sleep. The boy's chest rose and fell in time with the pump click, and Echo matched it with a slower breath as if tuning the room. Evan slid the photo of Arya from his pocket and read the line again. "Listen to the room your dog refuses." He thought of the shape in the hallway, of tape on the stair, of Voss's fingers reaching for the toy. Rena came beside him. "We'll talk to more people before sunrise," she said. "But we have a start." "We have more than a start," he said. Echo leaned into his calf like a nudge to keep going. Dawn had not come yet, but the rain softened to a steady fall. In his head, Evan heard the 3 notes. He almost believed he could hear a bird, if lucky things were real. The phone on the wall rang and cut the quiet in 2. Maya lifted it and listened, eyes widening. She covered the receiver. "Caller blocked," she whispered. A woman said, "Tell the dog not to go near the chapel." They made it the quietest room. Then she hung up. Echo raised his head and looked at the hallway like he already knew where the next refusal waited. Evan felt the pull of it in his bones and looked at Rena, who had already picked up her case. "Chapel," she said. "Chapel," Evan answered. And the 3 notes seemed to line up inside his chest again. Counting them forward to the door no one wanted to open next, they did not rush. Rena wrote a hold list: night lab, supply cage clerk, environmental services, and the float supervisor with master keys. Evan told Jai to keep Milo in a room they could watch from the hall, and to page him if any stranger offered to help with tubing or charts. Maya slid Arya's photo under her badge and tucked a fresh blanket at Milo's feet so nothing could snag. Noel stood, steadier now, and faced the corridor like a man who wanted to be useful at last. Echo rose, shook once, and scented the air. He angled toward the hallway between the chapel and admin, as if the choice were a test. Blocked call. Go chapel or admin first, and why today? Echo took the lead as if he had been here in another life. He padded to the crossroads that split the admin hallway from the chapel corridor and stood very still. His ears tracked left, then right, then back to center. The blocked call about the chapel replayed in Evan's head, but he did not tug the leash. He let the dog decide. Echo stepped toward the admin side, paused, checked the air again, and drifted toward a heavy gray door with a bent handle halfway down the wall. A faded blue paw sticker sat near the jamb like a joke from some hospital fundraiser long ago. Echo sniffed, tilted his head, and pressed his nose to the seam. Evan heard the scrape of a chain on the other side. Evan tried the handle. It moved and hit metal. He felt the thud of a chain through the wood. "Chained from the outside," he said. "Someone wanted it shut from this floor." Rena leaned close and pointed at a clean arc where dust had been swept by a box corner. Rick jogged up with bolt cutters and said the lieutenant sent him because he liked stupid doors. One bite and the chain fell. Echo stepped through and froze with one paw lifted, head canted to the left. Evan dropped his light to the tread and saw a glint so thin it looked like a line of water. Clear tape crossed the step, dust clinging to the glue. Whoever set it had wanted to see if the door moved and to reset it after. Evan broke the tape with a pen cap and bagged both ends. "Someone watched for movement," he said. Echo lowered his paw and placed it where the tape had been. They went down into air that tasted old and damp, the storm pressing through tiny gaps. On the landing, a small window with wire mesh showed a sliver of night. 3 steps down a steel door without a nameplate took up the wall. Echo lay across the threshold the way he had lain at room 310, not growling, just refusing, shoulders heavy like a sandbag. Evan read the posture the way he had learned to read a sign. The dog was saying the danger was inside and the trap wanted a push. Evan left the knob alone and picked the wall instead. A linen chute hatch had been taped shut with a rough slap of packing tape, fingers still printed in dust along the edge. "That is not maintenance," Rena said. They screw and seal. "Tape is for secrets." Rick slid a painter's knife under the edge and lifted. Lint fluttered like gray moths. Near the lip, plastic glinted. Maya reached in and drew out a clear bag holding a lanyard. The ID card inside showed Arya Bell caught grinning at the wrong time, and a tiny bluebird sticker perched on the corner. Maya covered her mouth and then lowered her hand steady. "She always put birds on her badges," she said. Echo pressed his nose to Maya's knee, a small, steadying push. At the turn, a closet door stood barely open. Evan nudged it with 2 fingers. On the floor lay a small prepaid phone with a new battery taped in. One message filled the screen. "Move the boy by midnight." The timestamp hit like a cold palm. They had opened 310 at 11:58. If Echo had not planted himself when he did, the cupboard would have held a child at midnight while a head painted to fail waited for a spark. Evan bagged the phone. "We route this," Rena said. "If it went through the hospital, the gateway will show a sender." Noel had followed them and stood with his keys in a shaking hand. "Admin holds the VPN logs," he said. "We need a top code to see who used what." "Then we go upstairs," Rena said. "And we go now." They climbed back up, Echo moving with a purpose that felt older than training. At the admin suite, Voss stood in his doorway with a practiced half-smile, a face-down phone near his hand, and a framed picture of a gala on the credenza. "Rough night?" he asked, as if this were small talk. Rena held up the judge's order and asked for the VPN logs and the list of remote admin seats. Voss typed a code without protest. but his eyes kept sliding to the face-down phone like a needle drawn by a magnet. Echo stared at that hand for a moment, and then looked away, already bored with it. He turned his head toward the chapel hall and listened as if the wall itself breathed. The logs unfolded on the screen in neat lines. Rena read them in a flat voice that kept the room honest. 2356 remote admin seat labeled CV Ops authenticated and sent an SMS through the hospital gateway to a prepaid number ending 8334. Content line matches the phone we found. 2353. Same seat hit a camera router in corridor G. She looked at Voss. That is your seat. Voss did not flinch. I often leave my token at my desk, he said. Anyone could have used it. Rena let the sentence sit on the desk like a wet rag. You did not report a missing token, she said. I was busy, he said. Tonight has been a blur. Yes, Rena said. For some of us more than others. Echo's body had already angled toward the chapel. Evan read the cue. We will circle back, he told Voss. Do not touch that phone. Voss raised his hands. Officer, I am here to help, he said, smiling the way glass shines. They left him in his clean office and followed Echo down the quieter hall. The chapel door carried a dove sticker and flaking paint. Echo slowed, sniffed, and gave a sound Evan had heard only twice in his life, a low note that carried sorrow and warning at once. He planted his feet and would not cross. Evan eased the door a palm's width. The air felt padded, like sound had weight. The pews were gone. Cushions were stacked in a careful spine. The candle rack sat empty with wicks cut short. Vent covers wore new foam baffles. Quietest room, Maya whispered, remembering the call. Echo sniffed the floor and moved across a lighter rectangle where a rug had been. He looked at the alcove where the tabernacle cabinet sat, then at the vestment closet. He lifted a paw and set it on Evan's boot, the sign he used when he wanted a human to look instead of rush. Evan scanned the walls. The crucifix had been taken down, leaving a lighter rectangle. The plaster under it rippled. He touched the bulge and felt a seam. Rick slid the knife and teased out a panel. Behind it, a shallow cavity held 3 portable drives, 2 notebooks, and a cheap brown ledger stamped Bright Harbor Foundation in gold. Rena exhaled. Hiding charity books in a chapel wall, she said. Bless their hearts. Maya opened a notebook with careful hands. Names and dates lined up. Vendor transfers into the foundation, then out to shell trusts, then to wellness grants and batch support. The path curved like a river, designed to lose anyone who tried to follow it. Echo nosed the base of the candle stand and pressed his paw against a nearly invisible drawer. It slid with a breath. Inside lay more drives labeled Night Feed G Hall 310, and under them a letter folded and damp at the corners. Maya lifted the letter and blinked hard at the first line. Little bird. The next said, If I don't get to say this in person, ask Nurse Noor to be kind. She knows the right doctor. Trust the dog called Echo. The ink had bled where a tear had fallen. Arya, Maya said, voice small and sure. Echo pressed his head against her thigh and held like a brace. Rena called the lab from the doorway. The tech traced the prepaid's text route, Hospital VPN at 2356, admin seat CV Ops. A second alert followed. Corridor G camera feeds had been rerouted to a hidden console in Research Annex Room 402 for the last 3 weeks. That matched Noel's quiet memory of a woman with short gray hair signing slips at the far door of research. Rena did not speak a name yet. She let the chapel hold the quiet while Noel found his courage. Evan looked at Noel. Tell us what you did and what you were told to do, he said, keeping his voice level. Noel sat on a cushion because his legs would not carry him. He stared at the sealed ledger like it might bite. They told me to run boxes, he said. They said the solvent was for clogged pumps and the after-hours tests were to protect patients. I signed with my code because I wanted to be useful. When I didn't have a code, they used a manager token and said hurry. I carried things where people wouldn't see and used the stair with the blue paw. I never opened the boxes. I never asked, because asking made people angry. He swallowed and looked at Maya. Arya asked me for help. She said someone threatened her for refusing to change a file. She said, hide him for a few hours while I call a judge. He'll be safer in the only room the dog won't enter, because it means they made it wrong and they will not risk opening it before midnight. I welded the hinge like an idiot. I thought I was making a safe lock. I cut the camera because she begged me to keep it dark. She promised she would be back before the clock changed. She never came. Maya moved closer and rested a hand on his shoulder. Fearful is not cruel, she said. You made a fearful choice. Now you make a true one. Noel nodded and wiped his eyes with his sleeve. Rena wrote in small, neat lines. When you carried boxes, who signed your slips? She asked. A woman in a white coat with short gray hair, Noel said. She didn't smile. She stood like she owned silence. I think her badge said clinical, but I never dared to stare. Voss is loud. She is quiet. People say his name. They don't say hers. Echo barked once and went still, as if saying the confession was the sound the room had been made to hold. Evan bagged the drives, notebooks, ledger, and letter, each with its own number. He photographed the cavity and the foam baffles. He stood by the empty candle rack and thought about all the small prayers people had lit there, and how the newest prayer had been a note hidden underneath for a dog to find. The blocked call had been right. They had made the chapel quiet so the wrong sounds could not escape. Tonight the right sounds found a way. They returned to the admin hall. Voss pretended surprise at the ledger stamp. Bright Harbor is my program, he said. We fund staff wellness. I chaired the gala last year. We raised a fortune. Rena held his gaze. You also laundered vendor checks through it, she said. From there to shells, from shells to grants that rhyme with batch C, from there to cash. The margins show CV signs on disbursements. That is not wellness. Voss's smile cracked, and then snapped back. It is not illegal to fund care, he said. You are twisting a good thing to fit a story. Your good thing sent a text at 23:56 telling someone to move a boy, Rena said. Your good thing cut cameras. The clean office felt small as a box. Evan did not raise his voice. You sent a midnight order to move a child, he said. It came from your seat. You did not report a missing token. You watched a welded room sit in the dark with a painted head and called it operations. Voss looked down the hall like a door might open if he waited long enough. Echo took one step forward and made a soft sound that landed heavy. Voss's shoulders sagged a fraction. I am not the top, he said. I sign what medicine brings me. If I don't, funding dies and we lose clinics and staff. Nobody wants that headline. There are layers you don't see. His voice trembled just enough to hear it. He kept his eyes away from Echo. Noel found his spine. He is a layer, he said. The other one hides better. Rena nodded once. Then help us pull the cover, she said. She lifted the bagged ledger. We have names and dates. We have video labels. We have Aria's voice and Aria's letter. And we have a dog who refuses at the right doors. She looked at Evan and then at the research corridor. We go to the annex. They stopped at the family room first. Milo slept on his side, cheeks calmer, one hand near the toy. Echo pressed his nose to the glass. Milo's eyes fluttered open. He saw the dog and smiled, the loose smile of a child who recognized safety and did not have to hold it by himself. Echo wagged once and stepped back. Evan felt the knot in his chest loosen for a breath and then cinch again when he pictured a hidden console in room 4002 and a pair of hands that had paused a feed while a cupboard door was welded shut. The storm softened against the windows. Rena set a uniform at each stair landing. Rick took the bolt cutters like a standard. Noel walked between Evan and Maya with his hands open, scared to touch walls that had kept too many secrets. I want to fix one thing, he said. Tell me where to stand. Evan told him to point and not look away. 4th floor, Noel said. Back left. A couch no one sits on. A coat hook shaped like a leaf. He gave small details like crumbs he had kept in his pocket, not sure if they mattered until now. In the elevator, Echo sat and watched the numbers glow. Maya held Aria's letter like a fragile piece of hope. Rena checked her case again. Clean laptop, right blocker, spare bags, and a spare leash from some older scene she did not talk about. Evan counted the 3 notes from the music box in his head because it kept his breath even. The doors opened on 4. The hall smelled like toner and cold air. Frosted glass spelled out pharmacology, trials, imaging. At the end, a quiet lounge held a gray couch and a rack with metal leaves. The building hummed in a way that felt careful. Noel lifted his chin toward a door with no window. Echo walked to it and stopped the way he had at 310 in the chapel, planted and silent. Evan felt every earlier refusal stack up behind this one. He put a hand on Echo's collar and the other on the knob. "We hear you," he said. "We do this right." They had followed the bait and found the back door. They had broken the trick in a quiet room. They had a second insider, but not the last. They stood before a door that would answer a question none of them liked speaking. Echo waited, patient and fierce in the same breath, ready to pull the last thread that the night had given them. Behind the door, a hum threaded the silence like machinery holding its breath. And somewhere below the rain slowed to a whisper. Evan glanced at Maya and Rena. No one blinked. They nodded together. "Before we open that door, answer this. If you were Evan, would you trust Echo's refusal and call for more backup, or push inside right now in the annex hallway as the storm fades tonight?" Echo stayed planted at the annex door, shoulder firm against Evan's leg, as the hum behind the threshold held its breath. Rena glanced both ends of the quiet corridor and lifted 2 fingers. Uniforms slid into place to block the elevator and the stairs. Rick hovered with the bolt cutters, big and steady as a wall. Maya tucked Arya's letter into her pocket, then set her palm on Echo's head. The dog did not wag. He lowered, braced, and gave that soft, stubborn pressure that meant not fast. Evan tried the knob. It caught and leaned back, the tiny spring of a latch shaved to feel normal while it lied. "Timed latch," he said. "Whoever used this wanted short visits and no scratches." Rena slid a wedge under the strike, nodded. Evan eased, click. The door gave an inch. Echo tightened against Evan's shin so he couldn't drift forward on adrenaline. "Slow," Evan said, and meant it. They stepped into a narrow room that pretended to be a storage office. Toner, plastic, the faint sweetness of solvent hung in the air like a rumor. At the far wall, 3 monitors sat on a clean desk. 2 ran split grids. The third showed a frozen splash screen for Bright Harbor Foundation. A shallow rack hid under the tabletop. No manufacturer badge. Power on a separate strip. A leaf-shaped coat hook matched Noel's memory. A framed coastline did its best to be calm. "Photograph everything," Rena said. She stayed away from power keys and ports, popped open a cold laptop, and clipped on a right blocker she could trust more than her own hands. Evan walked a circle with the camera, catching screws that didn't match, serial stickers peeled and replaced, dust shadows that should have been symmetrical and weren't. Echo stood at the bottom drawer and put his chin on it, then looked at Evan and waited. Evan pulled with 2 fingers. A slim envelope lay inside with 2 words in careful ink, "For Milo." Maya took the envelope like it might bruise. The handwriting matched the one on the Polaroid and the card files. She unfolded. "Little bird, you are braver than the knights. If I don't get to come back, Nurse Noor will be kind. Trust the officer with the dog. The dog's name is Echo. He will find what people hide. Count the 3 notes when fear is loud. I'm coming back if I can. Love." Amaya pressed the note to her chest, then breathed it out and smiled through wet eyes. "She planned to return," she said. "This letter is a promise, not a goodbye." Rena brought 1 monitor to life without touching the console's storage. Corridor grids blinked up with timestamps marching toward midnight. The tile pattern said G-Wing. A dome labeled 3 and 10 displayed black with a tiny triangle in the corner. Cables from the monitor ran to the hidden box, then to a secondary strip. "Local ingest," Rena said. "They pulled the feed from the dome, recorded here, and killed the public view." Evan nodded at the frozen Bright Harbor screen. "The same foundation stamped in the chapel ledger." Rena's mouth flattened. "They laundered money with a charity and scrubbed tape with a research box. Efficient." Rick shifted his boots. "Someone's coming," he murmured. The building hum changed like a door opened somewhere else. Echo's head came up. The knob turned. A woman stepped in with the quiet of someone who owned every room simply by refusing to hurry. Short gray hair, tailored lab coat, badge, N. Calder, CCO. Her gaze took the whole scene in one slow pass. The envelope in Maya's hands. The dog, the right blocker, the officers. She nodded the way a surgeon nods when the tray is ready. "Officer Cole, Agent Shah," she said. "Nurse Noor, Mr. Grant, Mr. Bowen, we finally meet." "Dr. Calder," Rena said. "We were going to invite you." Calder's smile didn't reach her eyes. I heard there was an unauthorized retrieval in a closed wing, she said. I came to ensure continuity of care. She glanced at Echo with almost academic interest. Therapy dogs are popular. Echo stared at her right hand, not her face. The hand favored the inside pocket in the way of people who carried a tool they called a pen when they didn't want to explain it. Evan angled to block the drawer and the console power strip. Set whatever you're holding on the desk, he said. Calder produced an actual pen and a small notebook as if to prove how innocent hands could look. Notes, she said. I prefer paper. Rena stood between her and the console. This room is a private recorder for cameras your public grid reported is down, she said. We imaged a card from inside a child's toy. It holds Nurse Aria Bell's logs documenting injuries and code misuse. We recovered ledgers from the chapel wall that tie vendor money to your foundation. Then to batch support. A text ordering the boy moved at 2356 came through the hospital gateway from an admin seat in Mr. Voss's office. We have enough to freeze devices and detain people. Calder did not blink. Operations makes mistakes, she said. Mr. Voss signs things he doesn't understand. My role is to prevent panic and keep care moving. If someone hit a child, that was reckless. If a nurse recorded patients, that was illegal. We will fix processes. Maya lifted the letter. Aria hid the boy because someone threatened him, she said. She left proof because she knew you would call her a criminal for protecting a child. A thin crack showed in Calder's gaze, there and gone. Trials fund children's care, she said softly, like teaching residents to accept gravity. If we lose them, clinics close and babies die in waiting rooms. We do hard arithmetic so you can sing lullabies. That's the bargain. I keep the doors open. You keep everyone calm. You painted a sprinkler head, Evan said. You welded a door. You taped a stair to see if the hall moved. That wasn't math. That was fear of getting caught. Calder's mouth narrowed, then went still. She looked at Echo. Animals react, she said. That's not judgment. It's muscle. Echo didn't growl. He breathed in and locked on the inside pocket again. Evan saw it the way you see a wave before it lifts. We're done, he said. Badge and phone, please. Calder lifted the pen a little, as if surrendering a toy. Allow me to lock my office, she said. Sensitive files. We'll escort, Evan said. Her hand flicked. A slim spring injector came out of the pocket like a trick. She turned her wrist toward the power strip in a move so fast it read as neat instead of wild. Echo exploded forward, jaws locking on her sleeve short of the skin, shoulder driving her wrist into the desk. The injector clicked against laminate and fell. Rick's hand closed over her free arm. Rena stepped in with cuffs like she'd been waiting for that exact angle all night. You just tried to destroy evidence, Rena said. Calder kept her face smooth. Glitches happen, she said. Labs understand. Evan took her wrist and felt a fast, controlled pulse. Dr. Nia Calder, he said. You're under arrest for obstruction. Endangering a child, tampering, and fraud pending review. He read the rest for paperwork and for the room. Noel sagged and then straightened as if his bones had chosen a side at last. She told me to make it quiet, he said. I thought quiet meant safe. Calder didn't look at him. Rena keyed her radio. Detain Voss, she said. Seize devices. A text came back with a photo of Voss beside the elevators, cuffs on, polished shoes slashed by a streak of mop water. Even at a distance, his smile had cracked and couldn't find itself again. They sat Calder in the chair and wrapped the console in anti-static. Rena imaged the drives. Evan rolled the feed backward. Corridor G flickered. Noel with a box. Aria moving like someone teaching the floor to breathe. A sleeve that matched Calder's coat. The stair tape going on, coming off. The dome cut, the private console lit. None of it shouted. All of it fit. Maya slid Aria's envelope into a clean protector. We'll read the letter to Milo, she said. He'll know she stayed with him even when the door said no. Echo eased off and sat at Maya's feet as if he knew the next work was softer. They walked Calder past the chapel. Rena paused at the doorway. You hid ledgers behind a cross, she said. That's a choice. Calder's voice didn't change. Rooms hide what people can't bear to carry, she said. You know that, Agent? Dogs carry it back, Rena said. Calder said nothing. In the ER, Jai had tucked Milo in a small room with a paper rocket taped to the window. Maya sat by the bed and unfolded the letter. She read in a voice children follow through storms. Milo listened and put his hand on Echo's head like tagging base. "Did she send you?" he asked. Echo pressed his skull into the small palm. That was the only answer he spoke. Milo cried the quiet, shaking cry that empties a chest without scaring it more. Evan watched the monitor tick, the IV drip. The child's shoulders find stillness again. He glanced down. Echo had started matching Milo's breathing, slow, counted, a metronome of fur. It looked simple. It felt like the bravest thing in the room. Rena brought in the charging paperwork. "They'll go downtown now," she said. "Noel, we'll record your full statement. Protection will follow. Rick, log your cuts and tape pulls. Maya, help me anchor Arya's timeline. Evan, you and Echo get food and 10 minutes of sleep after we watch the elevator doors close." They watched. The doors slid shut on Voss's wobbling smile and Calder's practiced stillness. For a heartbeat, the steel reflected Echo's face, ears up, eyes steady. Then the doors met and turned both faces into a line. Morning arrived like a washed sheet. The storm moved on. The wing smelled like cleanser and wet dust. People who had whispered at 2 a.m. spoke in normal tones again. Paperwork stacked. Rena walked it into rooms where signatures mattered. Noel wrote the truth in a slow hand that grew cleaner by the page. He didn't ask for water until the last line, and when he did, he said, "Please," like the manners had come back too. By afternoon, a judge denied bail for Calder and locked down Bright Harbor's accounts. Voss posted bond and tried to smile for a camera until gravity pulled his mouth where it really belonged, reporters shouted. Rena said no comment with the Milo steady. Cadence she used on nights like these. Maya drove Milo to a small house with a red door where an aunt with work-thick hands had made tea and set 2 cups and 1 tiny mug because she remembered what kindness looked like. The letter went on the mantel beside a photo of Arya in a paper hat. The aunt cried the way people cry when grief and relief arrive wearing the same coat. Echo lay on the rug like a hearth and watched the room learn its new shape. Weeks later, a carpenter patched the chapel wall and a painter rolled fresh light across it. A crew in the pediatric wing hung a sign above a hallway. Echo's Way, small birds stenciled along the baseboards. There was an opening day with donated cupcakes, and the city sent a ribbon and a pair of flimsy scissors because someone in an office had a checklist. Evan stood with Rena near the back. Maya held the ribbon while Milo cut it with both hands and a tongue-tip-out grin. He carried a new toy ambulance with a normal battery and a photo tucked inside. Arya laughing, Echo yawning, everyone breathing. They walked the hall. Echo paused where a certain old number had once made the air thinner. The frame was new, painted a soft green. He sniffed, then wagged, one slow beat like a blessing, and towed Milo toward a playroom where blocks were already tumbling and a bubble machine was trying its best. Maya leaned against the door jamb and exhaled, the long breath she had been holding since the music box first wound itself, and asked the dark to wait. Evan felt the ghost of the old hum behind his ribs and then felt it leave. Rena handed him a copy of the first page of Arya's logs and the last page of the ledger, now evidence numbers instead of secrets. "You did the careful thing," she said. "You listened to the refusal. That's the work." He looked at Echo, at the child, at the nurse, at the guard whose late truth still counted, at a wing that sounded like shoes and laughter instead of foam and wind. "He told me the room was wrong," Evan said. "We made it right." Echo tipped his head as if to say, "That's all." In a quiet corner, Maya mounted a small plaque. It did not say tragedy. It said, "Thank you, Arya, for knowing which notes help a child breathe." Under it, a tiny bluebird and one more line, "Trust the dog." That night, after cameras and cupcakes and a dozen retold versions of the moment the door finally opened, Evan sat on the floor of his apartment with Echo's head on his knee. The city outside had that worn, good hush that comes after a bad note is found and taken out of a wall. Evan rubbed the soft place under Echo's collar that made him close his eyes like a blessing. "We'll hear more rooms," he said. "Promise?" Echo bumped his wrist with his nose. "Yes." He slept, dreamed of a lit hallway, woke to air that smelled like rain and new paint. There would be other doors, Someone would try to make a quiet room for the wrong reason. Someone would write a number on a plate and count on everyone else walking past. Evan laced his boots. Echo leaned against his shin, the same old stubborn pressure that meant I'll stand here until you notice. They stepped into the morning and turned toward work. And if you ever hear 3 small notes in a place that should be empty, listen the way Echo taught us to listen. Stop, breathe, and trust the pull toward what needs saving. In the dark. Your answer might help someone trust their own warning when it matters. Say it plainly and tag 2 people. Tonight, please. Which choice would you have made if you were there beside the door, wait for backup, or push through because a child needed you? Tell us in the comments below and tag a friend. Like, share, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe so you never miss the next story where a loyal dog turns silence into truth.